evening, and welcome to Doctorpiece Theater. My name is Dr. Dennis Business, and tonight we will continue our dive into the last of the unholy trinity. Reaper's Creek. When we last left our hero, he was just... I don't even care. Daniel! A voice came from the side of my head. Daniel! Hey! The voice moved outward. I could hear it more clearly now. Daniel! Wake up, dude! The voice rang again. One side of my face feels cold. My arm is covering my eyes. My head is on my desk. I'm in class again, and David? Hi, David, I said, slowly pulling my head up from my slumber. Why are you sleeping instead of playing on the playground? David asked. I smiled sleepily and replied, I haven't been sleeping much at home. I've had a lot of bad dreams. I think my house is haunted or something. David frowned slightly and said, It's the creek. I shook my head and smiled. No, it's more than that. The heater, the washer, the dryer, the water heater, the flat roof, making it easy for abductions. David made a weird face. I wasn't sure if he was about to start laughing or he burst out. Yep, he was laughing. Immediately, I began laughing too. Not because I was trying to be funny, but because he had no idea I was serious. David's laughter wound down as he said, Come on, let's go outside. And I nodded, following him happily. After we played on the swings and the monkey bars for a bit, I noticed a small glow down the hill by the playground that led to the soccer field. I slowly made my way down there, but was somewhat afraid it would lead me to the same thing that I suspected I'd see the other night. David, want to play kickball? I asked. David replied, Yeah, but we have no friends. I giggled and said, We have plenty of friends to play with. I have two and you have two. See? Then I wiggled my legs in front of him as if they were separate people. David shouted, You're so weird, I hate you, ha 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 ha. And we ran down the hill to get the big bag of balls the teacher set on the field for us. Whenever David kicked the ball to me, I would move slowly towards the other end of the field, where there was a metal fence surrounding the school property. It allowed me to get closer to the red glow. Every time he would kick the soccer ball past me, unwittingly allowing me to approach the red glow to see what it is, and also not tip David off that there was anything different about me. All right, here comes my biggest kick ever. You're probably going to die if you get in the way, David yelled. I hollered back, Try me. David ran up and kicked the ball extremely hard. Normally his aim is really bad, but this time he got lucky, and it smacked me right in the middle of my face. Immediately my nose began to bleed. Before I even hit the ground, David screamed, Oh my God, Daniel! As he began to run towards me. As I rolled to my knees, I grabbed my shirt and pressed it to my nose, trying to stop the blood flow out of my face. Right in front of my eyes, the red glow burned as I found myself forgetting about my injury and lost myself to curiosity. Slowly standing, I walked forward to the glow. David slowed his run behind me, wondering why I was acting so strange. I wasn't crying. I wasn't saying anything. I was just silently walking away from him, towards the woods, for what I'm sure he imagined had no reason for it. "Daniel, want me to get the nurse?" David said. I replied, "I'm fine. Come here." David said nervously, I'm going to get the nurse," and ran off in the opposite direction. I don't think the old David would have done that, but I think he was getting the same weird feeling he got before when we found the dead bodies in the creek. He wasn't wrong to run away. About 10 meters into the shadow of the woods, I could see a deer with everything below the ribs ripped clean away. That was the glow, just like I saw in the creek. The glow was death. The bell rang off in the distance, but I didn't really care about the rules anymore. The glow of the remains of this deer faded in my eyes, as if my mere presence had put the deer's soul to rest. Or maybe I just had some God-given gift that helped me locate the dead, and it only lasted until I could confirm each location to identify those fallen. "Daniel, I have the nurse!" I heard a desperate David screaming behind me. I turned and smiled, with blood gushing down my face. I could feel the blood seeping through my teeth. It was as if I zoned out entirely on the deer, grinning the entire time. I felt a cold metal smack against my head. I had lost consciousness and fallen against the fence that separated the kids from the woods. I woke up to the sound of crying. It was David, and I was now in the nurse's room. David was talking to my mom. He kept saying he was sorry for knocking me out with a soccer ball, but I could hear my mom trying to reassure him, letting David know that I had a history of passing out, and it wasn't him. Fact is, I had a heart condition. Or so I thought I did. Fuck off. Your fucking heart condition. Fucking heart condition, my ass. That's right, Bones. Heart condition. Fact is, I had a heart condition. Or so I thought I did. But every doctor I went to couldn't identify what the problem was, or if there even was a problem. Whenever the doctors tested me, I wouldn't pass out, or have heart pains, or anything. So of course on paper I'm perfectly healthy. For all I know, it could have been the mere sight of blood on my own shirt. I couldn't handle a half-human, half-dinosaur. Why would I be able to cope with my face gushing blood? "I'm sorry, David," I yelped, trying to get him to stop crying. "Oh, Daniel, you're not dead," David said, sounding like he was full of joy. My mom stood up and said, "How many times do I have to tell you to start to put pressure on your nose the moment you start bleeding?" I replied, "Thanks, Mom. I'm fine. Can we go home now?" My mom shook her head and held up my backpack. "You know I have to go back to work after I drop you off, right? Now I have to work late," she said. I replied, "I'll try not to bleed myself unconscious next time." My mom sighed, hopefully getting my implied point at 11, and drove me home. As I stood in my door and watched my mom drive back over our little creek bridge to go to work, I realized it was only 1 p.m., and I still had around 3 hours before my sister or anyone else got home. 11. I don't know what got into me, but I had the overwhelming urge to get a closer look at the red glowing shapes I saw in the creek before. I ran halfway to the water before I remembered that I was highly prone to passing out and should probably get some calories in my body for energy and for my heart disease. Running back inside, I grabbed a bag full of marshmallows. Fuck off! I don't know what... Okay. Cut. Go back to as I stood in my door. As I stood in my door and watched my mom drive back over our little creek bridge to go to work, I realized it was only 1 p.m., and I still had around 3 hours before my sister or anyone got home at 11. I don't know what got into me, but I had the overwhelming urge to get a closer look at the red glowing shapes I saw in the creek before. I ran halfway towards the water before I remembered I was highly prone to passing out and should probably get some calories in my body for energy. Running back inside, I grabbed a bag of marshmallows and sprinted down the hill to begin my investigation. The first glow I found was a fish that was smashed under a rock. It had clearly been dead for some time. Walking up the side of the creek, I found another dead animal. It was a rabbit that had most of its body eaten, clearly by both insects and probably coyotes. Finding these dead creatures felt a lot like Easter egg hunting. Only the eggs didn't glow like these bodies did. It was easier than any hunt I had experienced before, and nowhere near as lighthearted. For about 30 minutes, I kept finding small animals. I even found a cat, only it was just a skeleton. I was surprised that the bones would still glow after all that time being dead, but they did. Clouds started gathering overhead and rain began to fall. I decided I would search just a little bit more, then go home. My goal was to clear out everything around my house. I didn't want to be able to see any glowing from where I lived. It would be a constant reminder of death. And sometimes you just don't want to think about that. The bodies were so repetitious as a result of the carnivorous animals in the area we lived. We didn't get bears much, or really any large predators, so the body I approached last, the size, it didn't make sense. Back in the woods at my school, where I saw that deer that was miles from my home, and that was directly connected to a far deeper forest than what surrounded my home. Railroad tracks, a racetrack, a busy road, all neighboring this little canyon that my whole family lived in. So, what was a large dead body doing here? No coyote could kill something that big. As I approached, I saw antlers. It was a male deer. I went through that entire preliminary thought process pointlessly. Maybe a bear did cross over. Or maybe this deer died of a disease. Looking more closely at the deer, I began to see a wiggling in its neck. I wasn't touching it, nor was I doing anything to it outside running away in horror. The red glow faded on the deer, and that was good enough. Slipping across the rocks, and sometimes sliding in the water, I eventually made it home, covered in mud and feeling 100% done with the creek, for the time being. Chapter 9. Eyes Never Opened. Spring break had come. I was sitting in my room, looking at my old TV. The beautiful imagery of Final Fantasy VII glowed in front of me. The characters all looked like hip young adults, something that I desired to be. Being a child felt so endless, like waiting for a Christmas that was never going to come. I had already invested about 24 hours of combined gameplay into this game. I planned on spending my entire spring break in my room, pinned between the dresser and the washing machine, playing Final Fantasy VII. After a couple days, my mission of complete isolation appeared to be successful until my mother called me out to help her make dinner. She said, "I'm having a friend come over today." And I replied, have I met this friend, Mom?" My mom answered, "No, this is a friend that I met recently at my job. She's very fragile, so be nice to her. Okay, Daniel?" Scoffing, I replied, "Mom, I think you're mistaking me for Joanna." She is the rude one. I'm the quiet one who never gets in anyone's business. My mom laughed as she continued to cling dishes together in the sink, seemingly incoherently. After I cleared off the table, and my mom had finished making our meal, we heard a knock at our large, thick, rustic-looking wooden door. My mom introduced her to everyone in the house, saying her name was Cynthia. Right away, I could see that she was pregnant. But out of my childhood, why would I point out this specific story? The pregnant woman who is a friend of my mom. I was just talking about discovering dead animals, and suddenly I'm talking about a pregnant woman. Well, it's not hard to figure out. I thought it was an 11-year-old talking this whole time. Cynthia was in fact fragile. Throughout all of dinner, I could see that she was emotionally distraught. She would say everything as if she was about to break down crying any moment, and I had already figured out completely why. This woman was trying to hold off going to the doctor. She seemed like such a nice lady, but that wasn't a very nice thing to do. She was trying to hold on to the baby inside of her. She was trying to ignore reality. You see, when a woman has a baby that's alive and well inside of her, there would be no reason for me to see any optical illusion or otherwise hallucinate with whatever gift I was given by the alien radiating from any section of her body. Yet this woman's belly glowed. I imagine it would have glowed less yesterday, and maybe last week there was no glow at all. As I listened to this woman talk, I began to realize that her avoiding the doctor wasn't a result of anything except for financial hardship. It didn't take long, conversing with my mom, for her to break down in front of all of us, talking about how she didn't have health insurance and the baby had stopped kicking days ago. After some convincing, my mom finally got her to agree to go to the ER with her. Seemingly without hesitation, a selfish thought crossed my mind. You see, ever since I gained this ability, I had planned to avoid it. Curiosity caught the best of me one day, but it was a necessary curiosity to help avoid future incidences of me investigating or being reminded of my ability. I searched the creek to rid myself of the constant red glow I would see outside my window just by passing on a normal day. But this walked right into my front room, and unforgivable thoughts centered on myself crossed my mind. Great. Now my spring break is ruined. Now all I have to think about is a dead baby. I said to myself, and I cursed myself for having such a thought as if I was the victim. As if me losing my happiness in a simple break from an otherwise relatively happy elementary school experience was really the true problem here. But what goes on in your mind often defines much of your future. And then last night, I defined my own future. The rest of that week, I did spend weighed down by a cloud of doom over my head. Multiple times throughout my break, I asked my mom what happened to that woman. And whenever I asked my mom simply said she didn't want to talk about it. That just made the cloud over my head grow darker. On the first day of school back, I saw David again. Selfishly, I shared with David what had happened to that poor woman, how it happened right in front of me. And he, of course, was not happy whatsoever to hear this information. That was basically the only conversation I had with David that day. He was just the kind of kid to avoid problems. Sometimes that means people who bring problems to you. I understood it, but I didn't respect it. For some reason, watching the short brown hairs on the back of David's head blow in the wind as he walked away triggered a sudden realization to me that the boy who remained me of the alien, I hadn't seen him in a very long time. The kid who was in special ed class, who I would see sitting across from me during lunch once in a while. He disappeared right around the same time I fought back at the alien. But how would I ask about who he is to anyone? Walk up to a teacher and say, "Hey, you know that special ed kid who twitches funny? Hey, you know that special ed kid who twitches funny? Have you seen him around?" No? I don't think I could do that. The moment you ever mention a special ed kid, they immediately consider writing you up for hate crimes, it seems. Aubrey, however, was still around. We just kind of fell apart after the whole Philip incident. I mean, how do you recover with someone after you beat someone up in front of them, and then that person just happens to die from an accident not long after? What's the opening statement for a reintroduction there? "Hey, remember that time a kid beat up that kid who's dead now? Anyway, what were we talking about?" No. For me, school was becoming more and more lonely every day. And even that kid I saved from bullying, he was only talking to me at the time because I was the person that would save him from his troubles. And now that he needed no more saving, it was like I was a ghost to him too, at 11. Regardless, it's time to go home again. The same school bus, the same driveway, the same time of day, the same door, the same house, the same bedroom, the same foam pillow. Flip out the lights, Daniel. And now you're dreaming again. And what dream am I going to have now? Oh, that's right. The same dream. Chapter 10. Your Dead Girlfriend. The alien was prepared this time. He pulled one of he pulled one of my eyes out. I tried to scream. My mouth was stuck open. My vocal cords were paralyzed. With the remaining eye, I tried to get a good look at the alien as I yelled inside my own mind, suffering silently to the world around me. The alien looked healed. Maybe it was a different alien whose eyes didn't explode. But it seemed this one was trying to take an eye for an eye. No, it, whatever it is, put my eye back. But it felt different. My eye felt a warmth at the stem. The alien reached forward and pulled my other eye, with seemingly no resistance. I could see with my freshly replaced eye in seemingly the same way. No blur, 20/20. Or I guess just 20. After inspecting and touching my eye in a few areas, it was also returned to my head. The creature seemed to be in a hurry. Immediately, it thrust its hand into my chest and pulled out my heart, or so it looked like my heart. I have no real understanding of my own anatomy. I screamed in my head again. I knew the alien could hear me. I must have looked like a fool with my mouth stuck open and nothing coming out. Just standing there, frozen, a gaping hole in my chest. I lost consciousness. A happy voice. Good morning, excuse me. A happy voice. Good morning, good morning. Shut up, Mom! I screamed abruptly, coming out of my sleep. Greg! Don't! What? What? A happy voice. Good morning! Good morning! Good morning to you! Shut up, Mom! I screamed abruptly, coming out of my sleep. Greg! Don't talk to me like that! My mom yelled back, only to be interrupted again. Mom, my chest is bleeding, I yelped. Immediately, my mom ran out, grabbed my papa, and before I knew it, we were in the urgent care facility, waiting for a doctor to decide if I'm worth his or her time. I blanked out completely in the truck ride there. So much of my life felt unfathomable now. Was I being tortured? What did the alien do to me this time? And who could I tell about this without being sent to a mental institution? Ha ha, Daniel, your face is turned... Oh, excuse me. Huh? Ha, Daniel, your face is turning green. My sister Joanna jested across from me in the waiting room. She could make fun, but we both know she wouldn't have come with my mom and papa unless she was also concerned. I just glared at my sister and rolled my eyes in a slightly amused manner. I wasn't in much pain. I just didn't want to ignore a chest wound for the sake of common sense. I got into the doctor's examination room after sitting in the waiting room for 4 hours. I guess chest bleeding wasn't a huge priority to them. After an additional 30 minutes of waiting, a nurse came in, asked me a bunch of medicine questions, and left. After another 15 minutes, and the doctor came in, he lifted up my shirt and scoffed, and then left the room. After a few generic comments about my sleep behavior, and then gave me a speech about self-harm. I was confused about all of this, but it became clear he had concluded I had done this to myself, either consciously or unconsciously. The wound on my chest had already dried, and no stitches were required. Apparently the alien had done either a great job making it look like I hurt myself, or a bad job simply cleaning up my wound entirely. I mean, it stuck his fingers through my skin before, without a mark. Why did it leave a mark this time? As we left the urgent care center, my sister indicated that she wanted to drive. My mom laughed at the idea as she was nowhere near old enough yet. My papa remained in our truck the entire time we were inside. Apparently, while I was getting looked at, he got fish and chips. I helped myself to chips. Everything on the road home seemed normal. My head was leaned on the back passenger window out of boredom. My sister was on the other side of the back seat asleep on her window. Everything felt so typical till we pulled off the main road onto our gravel road. From seemingly nowhere, a man in a small black pickup truck collided with the middle of our truck, me being immediately on the other side of the door he T-boned. I flew back and full-on slammed against my sister. My mom's window was shattered, and my papa was completely unaffected, aside from a few pieces of shattered glass scraping his face as it flew past him. Without hesitation, the man who hit us, clearly in a daze, screamed at us to see if we were okay. But despite how hard he hit us, we were not the people he should have been concerned with. No one else seemed to notice it, but his girlfriend, or whoever she was, who sat in the passenger seat of his car, was clearly dead. She did not glow to my eyes. That ability was clearly gone. But I felt a cold in her that I did not feel about anyone else around me. I didn't realize it till this moment. Maybe it was because I surrounded myself with the living, and there was no inconsistency that stood out in this new sensation. Yet in my chest, when I looked at the woman slammed against the black truck's dashboard, I felt nothing but silent, still, cold. Are you okay? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Where did you come from? Oh man, God! The man yelled at us in our large orange vehicle as we all recovered. My papa looked back to me. Daniel, are you hurt anywhere? I replied, my chest is bloody again, but I think I just ripped the scab back open. Meanwhile, Joanna was just sitting there wailing in horror. Ow, my ear! She screamed. Apparently a piece of glass had somehow found its way into her ear canal. Let me help you! I'm so sorry! Screamed the man outside our shattered right window. I yelled back, Dude! Your girlfriend is dead! Worry about her! I felt the focus of most everyone involved suddenly shift to me in a horribly uncomfortable way. The driver of the black truck muttered confused under his breath and looked back at his girlfriend. He saw how she was hunched forward and began screaming her name. My family kept looking back and forth at me, then at the man in the little black truck trying to wake his girlfriend up. I muttered, She's not going to wake up. She's dead. My mom replied, Daniel, we get it. My papa added, You guys should walk home. I'll deal with the police and everything. None of us were in the mood to deal with any more waiting rooms or doctors that day. We walked down the gravel hill to our home to self-medicate. That night over dinner, my papa was looking at me funny. I asked, What's up, Papa? He replied, How did you know that woman was dead? I answered, Did she look dead? My papa answered me, No, she looked unconscious. I looked down at my plate. I was abducted by an alien. I've been abducted a lot. I think they put stuff inside me. I can do a lot of things now. Or know things now. My papa immediately rolled his eyes and laughed to himself. When you want to tell me what was going through your head, why you sounded so confident, come and let me know, okay? He said as he stood up and gave his food to our dog. I let out a sigh. That was the exact reaction I expected. I followed up my last statement. That was the last chest wound I had. I think they ripped out my heart and... I let out a sigh. That was the exact reaction I expected. I followed up my last statement. That was the chest wound I had. I think they ripped out my heart and I don't know. My papa replied from a distance now as he closed the bedroom door. Okay. Good night, Daniel. I looked back at those remaining at the dinner table. My sister was staring at me. What? I said. Joanna replied, You're an idiot. Someone died and you're joking around? I let out a big sigh. I replied, You're right. I am an idiot. Weeks later, I discovered something new about myself on the playground. Something that probably ruined a few people's lives. I'll talk about it later, though. Those were chapters 8, 9, and 10 of Reaper's Creek. Very, very weird stuff. And Daniel's mom calls him Greg. I don't know why that happened. I didn't remember the word Greg being used in earlier chapters. But hey, maybe it's me. We can figure that out next time. But for now, this has been Doctorpiece Theater, and my name is Dr. Dennis Business. And as always, my friends,